Do comic books have to relaunch to get attention? A lot of people complain about the number one issues and how comics are relaunched, but is there a business reality that we're just ignoring? We're going to go into that. Hey there, this is Perch, and wanted to talk about relaunches and number one issues because as fans, I often see people make kind of casual comments or off the cuff comments about what they hate about comics. And one of the most frequent ones you see is the relaunching. Here goes Marvel again with a bunch of new number ones. They're just going to get canceled in a year. And there's real anger in fans for this. So much so that with part of Marvel Legacy, they actually said we're going to show the legacy number and do some kind of weird count to show how many issues we had, and it's going to be like Fantastic Four number 762, and also Fantastic Four simultaneously number 14. And that, from a customer standpoint, that was just more irritating than just going with the relaunch in a lot of different ways. There's a way to do it. I mean, this video isn't about how do you number and how do you make it work. I do think that the legacy numbering is valuable and important, and I personally, as a fan, wish that comics just kept going and we didn't have new number ones and we just had one big long stretch. That's what I would prefer as a fan. Because for me, comics hooked me enough that I was able to not be intimidated by the idea that I was picking up X-Men number 112 and what's going on, nobody knows. That wasn't intimidating to me. I was able to go back then in time and get the earlier issues and not feel like I was missing out or that it was impossible for me to do that. But for my experience is not what a lot of people's experience is. Several people do have trouble going back. They need that easy number on there. And those people read Captain Marvel. No, I'm not going to go. Sorry, no, I'm not going there. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Captain Marvel's a wonderful title. Kelly Thompson, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, no, my point is that there is a business reality here that we kind of forget. And whether we like it or not as fans, when you put a new number one label on a comic, it's like injecting some adrenaline into a comic that is not losing interest, but has a core base of followers and isn't attracting new readers. So you put that number one on there, you get a sales bump, more people come in. The problem, as I've discussed in the past, there's videos, I won't go into it in heavy depth here. So for those of you who are writing comments like, yeah, but what about the diminishing returns on number one? Absolutely they are. There's videos in the past. I urge you to go check those out. But it is true that every time you relaunch with a new number one, the relaunched number one issue tends to be a little less successful. Now, not 100% of the time, but like 90% of the time. The new number one is just a little less successful than the one that came before it. And the drop from number one to number five tends to be steeper. Eventually, the title kind of settles out to where it was. So the argument that gets made is fans say, hey, what if you just put more of your effort into making the title strong, not relaunch it, and just keep that numbering going, and you'll gain fans that way. Or maybe you should do a better job marketing a storyline so you can pull in new readers. You don't have to relaunch, you just make a big deal out of this is a good jumping on point or whatever. The problem with both those suggestions is that they are somewhat ambiguous. They're correct, by the way. I completely agree with those suggestions, but they're hard to follow. Let's say you're a marketing person who's joined Marvel, you're a junior editor, or whatever it happens to be. You're curating a line, and you're paid, let's just say, not what a manager at a Starbucks is paid. And you are in charge of this product, and your choices are figure out a way, in many cases with no budget, to market and promote the fact that you've got a new creative team, new storyline on this comic, and new readers should come check it out. And in the solicitations that you write, you can put a perfect jumping on point for fans, but nobody really reads that anymore because the solicitations are flat garbage. So how do you get that message out to retailers and fans alike? You're given no roadmap. You're given no real instructions. You're going to have to use your creative ingenuity here. And now people listening to this video might be tearing their hair out going, well, if you got that job, shouldn't you be bringing that creative ingenuity to your job? And the answer is, yeah, you should. But just because you should do something doesn't necessarily mean that you will. And again, you're not paid the most. You're stuck in a kind of a weird world where, there's not a clear hierarchy, and a lot of kind of random things are being done at any given time. Most of your army, your people, your creatives making your books are freelancers, so they could come and go pretty much at any notice, either by your choice or theirs. And or the other path is slap a new number one on, which has a very well established, clear understanding inside the company of what happens. You say, all right, we got a new creative team. Let's go for a brand new number one. We're going to do it. We know the marketing budget for a new number one. We know that it's going to automatically pop a little bit in the solicitations. That's what we're going to do. So what do you pick, A or B? Well, most people will pick B. It's easier. It's more straightforward. It's kind of like in the 80s, there was this slogan in tech that was, you don't lose your job by picking IBM. And what they meant by that is, if you pick the safe route, maybe not the good route, but the safe and known route, you may be punished for not doing better, but you're probably not going to lose your job. On the other hand, if you do something creative, something new, and it goes wrong, chances are your company's not going to have your back and you're going to get fired. Therefore, pick safe. And this is what comics largely do when they relaunch a number one issue. They pick safe. Even things that have a huge kind of hype cycle going into them. You take a look at Jonathan Hickman's House of X, Powers of 10. I still say Powers of X from time to time. I don't care. I don't, whether it's a noob thing or not, I don't care. That's how I say it, and damn it, I'm sticking with it. Anyway, even with that big marketing push and the sales response and everything else, when they launched X-Men, it was a brand new X-Men number one. It wasn't X-Men number 642. It was X-Men number one. It was Excalibur number one. It was X-Force number one. There had been a previous new number one issue like a year earlier. I mean, less than a year earlier for X-Force. About 1 year earlier for Uncanny X-Men. But doesn't matter. You pick the safe route. And from a business perspective, in the store, it's a safe route for the store too. The store has to think a little bit less. The retailers, they're just number one issue. Maybe even got those little tags that you can put on the shelf that say brand new issue, brand new series. You slap one of those on there and you're good to go. That's it. I think that if you look at X-Men and you look at kind of the recent issues that have been relaunched, you see a lot of safety in how companies and publishers go into marketing what they do. And that's why we get number one issues. As a fan, again, it bothers me. I'm on, for the people who are clamoring over, we need, to keep the numbering legacy and renumbering is bad. I'm with you. On an emotional soul level, I am with you. But from a business profit level, it's tough. It's not straightforward. It's not as easy as, hey, just keep the legacy numbering going on and market it smarter, and the people will come. It will all work out in the end. It's not that simple. Wish it was. What about you? Do you care? And by the way, I think this is a case where about 5 years ago, a lot of people cared. There was a lot of real rumblings within the, particularly Marvel community, but some DC, around renumbering and why it was irritating to collectors, a frustrating practice. People wish they would end it. Some real anger about renumbering. Now, 5, 8 years later, people are tired. I feel like most people are just, they don't care anymore. They've been through, when you're on your, I don't know how many relaunches X-Force has had. There's been a lot of X-Force over the years. By the time you're on your sixth or your seventh X-Force in 10 years, it's not been that many. 20 years. 20 years though. I think we're on our sixth or our seventh. You're enough. It's just like, I don't care anymore. I can't muster up the emotional energy to care what number is on this cover. I just hope that the thing I paid $3.99 for is good on the inside, and you just go with that. And I also think, there's a bunch of collectors I've talked to recently who they all have their long boxes and they have their comics bagged and boarded and everything else, and they stopped even bothering to put Like, once upon a time, people would put comics in the right order. They'd bag and board them, and they'd put them in there, and they're like, I got my X-Force here, and my Batman here, and my Green Lantern over here. And now it's like, screw it. They just bag it and board it, put it in the box, and then at some later day, I think almost every collector has this picture in their mind of some wonderful utopian day where you come in and you just have nothing to do. You've made all your money. You're rich. You've got your long boxes spread out all over the floor, and you're picking up the comics one by one and lovingly putting them in the right place in your box. And what a happy day that will be. We'll see. And on that cheerful note, what about you? Do you care about renumbering? Are you done? Are you done with it? Does it matter? Are you passionate still? You're holding up the torch for no more renumbering. What do you think? What are your ideas? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening to my nonsense.